What happens when you combine survival gameplay, co-op mode, and this old guy? I know it's the sort of game that I'd like to play. The upcoming game, Wild and Chill, promises to deliver that all in a beautiful pixel art package. I was excited when I first saw this trailer, and today I'll be taking a first look at the brand new demo for the game. I want to also add before I jump into this that there has been no monetary exchange for the making of this video. This is not an ad. I'm simply a guy who really enjoyed Cast and Chill, and the team over at Wombat Brawler graciously sent me an early demo key. So thanks to them for doing that. Now, let's jump into the demo. As I launch the game, I get thrown right into the middle of the woods. But luckily, I wasn't alone. Beside me was my companion Lump.
Lump sat alone in a boggy marsh.
One thing I noticed right away was that I didn't get to customize my character or companion, just as you can in Cast and Chill. But I have no doubt that this ability will be added in the full version of the game. Lump and I start off strong by almost getting mauled to death by a wild Ursus americanus, a black bear. With one path blocked, we opt to head in the suspected safe route. And yes, you can also pet your companion in this game. Along the way, I gather what I think would be useful later on, just as I'm presented with some survival basics. The bluet mushrooms I just picked up will cover my hunger for now, but as I press on, my insatiable appetite for flesh will only continue to grow. My other survival basic goals: build a campfire and a shelter, as well as find some fresh drinking water, which shouldn't be too difficult as I can already see a river behind me. I continue gathering plenty of materials, which unlocks several blueprints for craftables, like the buff bed. This is a good start, but I think I'd rather a little bit more of a comfortable sleeping arrangement. That's when I came across one of the most delicious looking wildlife in the game, but even when I was in sneak mode, I couldn't get very close. A little further ahead, I came across a spot where the river crossed my path, giving me the water I needed to check it off my list. Now with water and food, I needed a blade, fire, and a proper shelter. The blade was pretty simple, as I just needed to chip 2 basalt rocks together in order to sharpen one. I was then able to use this to cut down some nettle without getting stung. Harvesting this gave me the means to craft a rope, which I then used to tie a stick along with my blade together. This was now a makeshift stone axe. Primitive, I know, but I gotta start somewhere. As the sun started to set, I noticed I was getting a bit chilly. This little meter up here also shows stamina, hunger, and thirst. This design reminds me of the stamina bar in the game Peak, which I've always liked because it's simple yet super effective. I also took a second to check out the map, which is very reminiscent of the Cast and Chill map. So far, however, it looks like there's only 2 locations to check out in the demo. And so without much daylight left, I set my sights on checking out the second location tomorrow morning. I managed to cut down a nearby tree with my new stone axe and use the branches with some flint I found in the river to make a campfire. And with a little extra rope, I made this cute little lean-to, where I had a lovely sleep after such a long day of surviving. With my most basic survival needs now met, I wake up a little bit late on day 2, so I immediately set off to explore the next region. As I trailblaze a path by cutting down the salmonberry tree, I stumble upon several more types of flora to add to my journal. Then as the sun was setting, I came across a beautiful clearing that looks off into the nearby lake. This is exactly the spot in the trailer where the survivors were building a big ass log cabin. I gotta say that they killed it in the art design, both for the foreground and the backdrop. Just like in Cast and Chill, the entire frame is beautiful and feels alive with all of the small animals running around, deer grazing, and water flowing. And while I don't have the ability to make the log cabin just yet, what I can do is visit this old chud named Buck. Buck is like the new Rusty, and it turns out he's a pretty helpful guy, because as soon as I introduced myself, he offered me a used steel axe, which is a huge upgrade from my homemade stone one. While at the moment this is just a lender, all I gotta do to keep this beauty is bring him 10 pieces of firewood. And when you know it, he also throws in an old canteen. So now I can take my water on the go. As Lump and I head back to the camp in the pitch black of night, I come across a deceased grouse. Grouse? The body still looks pretty fresh, so I take it home and cook it over the open flames for dinner that night. Hopefully I don't catch the plague or something from it, but who am I to turn down free meat? Day 3 comes, and while I got lucky the night before with the bird, I have nothing but mushrooms to keep me fed for the rest of the day. So as I head out to cut down some trees for Buck, I attempt to snipe this hare with a stone. Unfortunately, I suck and can't throw for shit. Much like in the long dark, some things never change. So dinner will have to wait. I also underestimated how long cutting trees down would actually take. And so for the rest of the day, I ended up doing just that. Once I did get my hands on a limb, however, I unlocked the blueprint for an alder bow. Once I make this, I shouldn't have any problem killing some small game. But for now, it was bedtime. After even just this amount played, I'm surprised with the amount of interactability in this demo compared to its predecessor in Cast and Chill. There are certainly a lot more interactable items on the ground than what I believe they could accomplish with such a simple art style. And I say that with love. I am such a big fan of the pixel art. And this is no doubt a limited version, so I can only imagine how many things I can actually interact with in the full version. On day 4, I finished collecting the 10 firewood for Buck, and now the axe is mine. But after this trade, he also lends me an old pot. And to keep this, all I have to do is make him some mushroom stew. Even though I'm not opposed to helping an old guy out, it seems like I was becoming his own personal chef, which I guess I'm pretty good at in the game, but in real life, I have no sweet clue what I'm doing. I don't know how to work this stove. So he might regret that. Before I made the stew, however, I ended up making my bow along with a couple of arrows. Finally, with a proper weapon, I went out to hunt my own dinner. This time it was real easy. All it took was a quick lining up of the shot and boom, that sweet, sweet flesh. Now with dinner for myself and soup for Buck, I head back and bring him the slop. This is where he told me about his messed up knee.
I used to be an adventurer like you, and I took an arrow in the knee.
And his meds were actually up in Black Bear Hollow. Unfortunately, this is the route that the Black Bear was guarding. Honestly, man, this seems like a bad place to leave your meds. But knowing Buck, he had something else to lend me. This was an ATV. Not sure why he can't go get his own medication himself if he's got one of these babies sitting around. But who am I to question him? Because I just got a free ATV. He told me this would be loud enough to scare the bear off. So with trust in Buck, I took off and almost crashed coming down the hill. And what do you know? The sound of the ATV actually did scare off the bear. And that marks the end of the demo. Overall, Wild and Chill feels like the team over at Wombat Brawler took what they learned in Cast and Chill and improved on it even more. Specifically the Hunker Down Lake update where you can get off your sled and walk around, as well as the Old Moose Cabin update, where you can customize, although limited, your very own cabin by the lake. Even with all that I had experienced in the demo, I could tell that there was a ton more under the hood that I couldn't access just yet, like more discoverable flora and fauna that you can add to fill up your compendium, which, based on the Steam page, I can confirm there will be over 40 wildlife and 20 plus species of fish to catch. Where Cast and Chill was all about the fish, I'm really curious what other wildlife they will end up including. From the previews, I'm excited to see things like snakes and frogs, and whatever that silhouette is.
Who's that Pokemon?
There's also supposedly some strange hermits deeper in the wilderness, so Buck won't be the only new character we meet. Where Buck is pretty similar to Rusty, I'm curious to see what new types of people they include. Who else could fit in this Canadian-Alaskan backcountry setting? Maybe folks like Les Stroud looking for Bigfoot, or a local ranger up in the Firewatch Tower. Along with new NPCs, the game will also include the ability to play in co-op mode with other friends. I can imagine playing this with friends would be a fun mix of exploring other regions and delegating daily tasks, like hunting, foraging, and building the perfect log cabin in the woods. Hopefully they expand on the cabin customization options. Combine all this with the different seasons and throw in the ability to get in a canoe and do some similar fishing gameplay like in Cast and Chill, and you've got me hooked for hours on end. Other things I would like to see in Wild and Chill would be the aforementioned ability to customize your own character, along with having different types of companions to choose from. I'd also love to see different items or resources that can only be obtained by traveling to other regions, like different kinds of wood, huntable and trappable creatures, as well as forgeable items. This would be such a great treat to stumble into a distant forest and find the exact resource I've been searching forever for. With all that said, I am super excited for Wild and Chill to fully drop and try it out with friends. So what do you think of the demo? And what would you like to see in the full release of Wild and Chill?